Hey, step away from the vehicle. This lot's restricted.
I work here. Just loading my gear.
Everyone says that. I'm gonna need ID before this gets ugly.
For putting bags in my own car?
Sir, your kind don't drive unmarked police SUVs. Don't play dumb.
Julian Moss, Chief of Police.
You're Chief Moss? And you just racially profile...
The moment the tow detail patrol truck turned the corner into the restricted police lot, nobody imagined it would spark the kind of chaos that would shake an entire department. But the instant the rookie officer jumped out, moving fast, chest pushed forward, eyes locked on the black SUV, everyone who later watched the security footage said the same thing. He didn't see a police vehicle. He didn't see a department space. He didn't see a man doing his job. He saw a black man touching something he believed he shouldn't. And that belief, that snap judgment, was about to cost the department over $1 million and end his own career before he even understood how badly he'd messed up. Before I continue, where are you watching from? And if this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like this need to be heard. It was 3:40 p.m. on a quiet Wednesday inside a restricted access lot behind the Metro Public Safety Building. Signs were everywhere, big, bold, and impossible to miss. Polici STFF only. All vehicles subjected to VVRIFIVCATION. Cameras monitored every angle. Only people with key cards could enter the lot. And the man standing beside the SUV had that access. He had the right to be there. In fact, the entire place was technically his responsibility. His name was Chief Julian Rohn, the newly appointed head of the Metro Police Department. 3 weeks into his role, he had been settling into the rhythm of reorganizing the force, reviewing departments, and reconnecting with community leaders. That afternoon, he was loading equipment into his assigned black SUV, a government-plated, unmarked Chevrolet, spotless and standard for the department's top command. He had just finished placing a binder and a protective vest into the trunk when a voice cut through the air, sharp, irritated, and dripping with condescension. "Hey, step away from that vehicle. This lot's restricted." Chief Rohn turned slowly, confused but calm. The officer charging toward him wore tow detail blues and an expression that said he believed he was in the middle of catching someone committing a crime. The name tag on his chest read Connors. He was young, maybe late 20s, and moving like someone who had decided the black man in front of him had already done something wrong. "Officer," Rohn said, keeping his tone steady, "I work here. I'm loading my gear." Connors shook his head, disbelief already poisoning his face. "Aha. Everyone says that. But I'm going to need ID before this gets ugly. Because your kind doesn't usually drive unmarked police SUVs." The parking lot cameras caught every second of that moment. The insult, the posture, the assumption, the arrogance. And in the middle of the frame stood the chief of police, staring at the officer who had just made a mistake that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Rohn lifted his credentials slowly, open, clear, easy to see. "Chief Rohn," he said simply. Connors didn't even lean in to look. He didn't pause. He didn't even consider being wrong. Instead, he smirked. "That's fake. You can buy badges online. I've heard all the excuses. Step away from the vehicle. I'm calling it in as an unauthorized entry." Rohn took a breath. Deep, controlled. Not angry. Not panicked. Just tired. Because he knew exactly what was happening. He'd lived with that tone, that assumption, his entire life. But even then, he had not expected to face it inside his own department's lot, from one of his own officers. "Officer," he said quietly, "look carefully. This is real identification. Call your supervisor. Call dispatch. Verify me properly." "Nope," Connors snapped. "You people love pretending you belong places you don't. I'm not falling for it." Rohn kept holding the ID. "My badge number is on record. You can verify in 30 seconds. Connors took a step closer, too close. "I don't need to verify anything. I can see what's happening. And since you want to argue, I'll tow the vehicle too. We'll let detectives sort out your story. Roan blinked slowly, stunned by the level of stubbornness. Officer, listen to me. No, Connor said, pulling his radio. Dispatch, this is TOW Unit 4. I've got an unauthorized male in the personnel lot touching a department SUV. Subject claims he's command staff, but ID looks fake. Request tow authorization. There was a pause. Dispatch didn't answer immediately, likely because the plate number he sent didn't match what they expected for a civilian. Unit 4, Dispatch finally replied, that vehicle is assigned to Metro Command. Who does the subject claim to be? He's telling me he's Chief Roan. Another pause. Longer this time. Suspiciously long. When Dispatch came back, the voice held a hint of disbelief. Unit 4. Chief Roan was appointed 3 weeks ago. If the ID matches, that's his vehicle. Connors didn't blink. Negative. ID is fake. I'm maintaining position until backup arrives. Roan's patience started to thin. His jaw tightened, though he kept his voice measured. Officer Connors, Dispatch just confirmed the vehicle. You need to step back. Instead, Connors activated his body cam, late, only after he'd already made every wrong move, and angled it straight at the chief as if documenting a crime. Another tow detail officer walked into the frame moments later. His name was Officer Boyd, and the second he saw Roan, his eyes went wide. Chief, sir, what's going on? Connor snapped back. He's not the chief. He's lying. Boyd stared, shocked. That's the chief. That's literally the chief. No, it's not. Connors barked. Why would the chief be loading equipment alone? Why would he be here? Why? Because he works here. Boyd spat. He's your boss. The body cam captured Connors' face right then, the exact moment ego cracked and panic rushed in. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Behind him, the chief finally allowed the authority in his voice to rise. Officer Connors, Roan said firmly, you racially profiled me. You called my ID fake. You tried to tow my assigned vehicle. You ignored dispatch confirming it was mine. And you escalated without reason. Step away from me. Now. Connors froze. His eyes darted between Boyd, the SUV, the ID, and the cameras overhead, all recording him from every angle. Boyd pulled his radio. Dispatch, we need a supervisor in the personnel lot immediately. Chief Roan is requesting it. Connors swallowed hard, panic finally taking root. I was just doing my job. Roan raised one hand. Do not speak to me. Not another word. Within minutes, the lot transformed. Supervisors arrived. Internal Affairs arrived. Connors was separated, placed against his patrol truck, and told not to move. His badge was taken. His gun was taken. His access cards were removed. His face was pale, eyes wide, mind racing with excuses that would never work. Every excuse he could think of was crushed by video, audio, and his own arrogance. And as more people gathered, more questions echoed through the department. If he profiled the chief like this, what has he done to people with no badge? No authority? No protection. It was the beginning of a storm nobody in the building could ignore. The restricted lot had turned silent, but it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the thick, heavy kind that makes people stand still and hold their breath. Officer Connors sat on the edge of his tow truck, hands shaking, face pale, trying to understand how a simple assumption had turned into the biggest mistake of his life. He kept glancing at the supervisors gathering around, each one whispering the same stunned question. How did he not recognize the chief? But anyone who watched the video later knew the truth. Recognition had nothing to do with it. He hadn't even tried to see who the man was. He saw skin color. He saw his own assumptions, and he acted on them. Inside the building, Chief Julian Rohn sat in a small interview room with internal affairs investigators. His uniform was still neat, but his expression showed a mixture of disappointment and exhaustion. Not anger, not shock, just the steady, familiar weight carried by someone who had spent decades moving through spaces where he was often misjudged before he even spoke. But this time felt heavier. This time, the bias had come from someone wearing the same badge he wore. Across the room, investigator Leona Maris clicked her recorder on. "Chief, I know you've already given a verbal statement outside, but we need a complete account on record. Please walk us through what happened from the moment the officer approached." Rohn nodded. At approximately 3:40 p.m., I was loading equipment into my assigned vehicle. Officer Connors entered the lot and immediately confronted me. He told me I didn't belong here, demanded ID, and accused me of trying to access a department vehicle illegally. He paused, the memory of the disrespect briefly flickering in his eyes. I identified myself as Chief Rohn. I showed my credentials. He laughed and called them fake. Investigator Maris raised a brow. He laughed. "Yes," he said, "people like me buy badges online." He then called dispatch for TOW authorization without verifying anything. "Did you ask him to call a supervisor?" "I did," Rohn replied. He refused. He ignored dispatch when they confirmed my vehicle. And he repeated comments that made it clear his actions were based on bias, not suspicion. The investigator nodded slowly. "We have audio confirming the phrasing 'you're kind' and 'you people.' Those comments alone violate multiple department policies." Rohn sat back, folding his hands. It wasn't just the comments. It was the certainty. He was so sure a black man couldn't be the chief that no amount of truth could reach him. In another room, separated by 3 concrete walls, Connors sat with his union representative, trying to form explanations that kept collapsing under their own weakness. He rubbed his forehead, sweating, eyes glassy with panic. I didn't know," he muttered. "Nobody told me the chief was black." His representative stared at him, unimpressed. "You don't verify identity based on appearance. You verify with radio, badge number, protocols. You didn't do any of that." Connors swallowed. He was wearing a suit. Chiefs wear uniforms most days. "That's your defense?" The representative snapped. "You ignored dispatch. You ignored credentials. You made racial comments. You tried to tow his vehicle. Do you understand how serious this is?" Connors looked like he might be sick. "I didn't mean it like that." A supervisor stepped into the doorway. Commander Ruiz, a stern, experienced officer with a reputation for being calm under pressure. He folded his arms, eyes locked on Connors. "Stand up," Ruiz ordered. "We're moving to the conference room. Internal Affairs wants you present for the preliminary review." Connors rose shakily. His steps were uneven as Ruiz escorted him through the hallway. Officers passing by stared, not aggressively, but with the same expression someone gives a car crash, surprised, unsettled, unable to look away. Some whispered. Some simply shook their heads. Nobody stepped forward to defend him. When they reached the conference room, Connors froze. Chief Rohn was standing at the far end of the table, speaking with a deputy chief. His presence alone filled the room with authority, the authority Connors had denied, mocked, and dismissed. Ruiz nudged him forward. "Sit." Connors sat, head down, hands twisting together under the table. The deputy chief cleared his throat. "We're going to review the evidence now, starting with the exterior camera." The lights dimmed. The large monitor on the wall flickered on. And there it was, the entire encounter, from the moment Connors stepped out of his tow truck. No excuses. No gaps. No missing audio. Everything was there. The hostile walk. The dismissive tone. The refusal to verify. The racial comments. The moment dispatch confirmed the plates. The moment Officer Boyd recognized the chief. The moment Connor's face crumbled. Connors stared at the table, unable to lift his head as the room filled with the uncomfortable sound of his own voice. The recording didn't make him look unsure or mistaken. It made him look intentional, reckless, biased. When the video ended, the room stayed quiet. Nobody spoke. Nobody shifted. Nobody coughed. That silence became louder than any words. Finally, the deputy chief turned to Connors. "Is there anything you want to say for the record?" Connors opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. His voice finally cracked. I thought I was protecting department property." Chief Roan's eyes rose, not angry, but sharp enough to cut through every excuse. "You weren't protecting property," he said. "You were protecting your assumptions. You ignored facts. You ignored protocol. You ignored a dispatcher confirming the vehicle. You ignored me telling you who I was. You ignored the ID in your face. You chose assumption over truth." Connors swallowed hard. "I didn't mean." "Stop," Roan said, raising a hand. "Not once did you try to verify properly. You saw me. You made a decision based only on that. And then you doubled down so hard that nothing, not proof, not procedure, not your colleague, could change your mind." The union representative leaned in, whispering urgently, "Don't say anything else." But it was too late. Every word Connors had spoken had only made things worse. A senior internal affairs officer took the floor next. "Officer Connors, based on the video evidence, audio recordings, and statements, you are being placed on immediate administrative leave pending termination review. You will surrender your badge and weapon before leaving the building." Connors's face went blank, completely empty. It was the look of a man realizing his future had just been rewritten in front of him. Supervisor Ruiz stepped forward. "Stand up." Connors stood. His hands trembled as Ruiz unpinned the badge from his chest and removed his holstered weapon. Connors didn't resist. He didn't argue. He just stared straight ahead as the items were taken from him, symbols of authority now stripped away because he had abused them. Chief Roan watched silently. He didn't smirk. He didn't look triumphant. He simply observed the consequences unfold, knowing this wasn't just about him. It was about every person who had ever been dismissed the same way. As Connors was escorted out of the room, the department wasn't asking if he'd be fired. They were asking something far more important. If he treated the chief like this, how many civilians had he treated worse? The inside of the courtroom was cold and quiet. People whispered as soon as the racist cop, Officer Belling, walked in with his lawyers. He looked angry, tired, and scared at the same time. The man who once shouted orders in a parking lot now looked like he wanted to disappear. Cameras flashed. Reporters tried to push forward. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when the truth finally came out. At the other side of the room, Police Chief Marcus Reed sat with his family. He was calm, but his eyes showed pain. He had spent years protecting the city, guiding young officers, and teaching them how to treat people with respect. But one officer, one ugly moment, had tried to destroy his dignity. Marcus kept his hands folded. He didn't look at Belling. He focused on the judge. When the judge entered, the room rose. The judge was known for fairness. He looked at the papers in front of him, then at both sides. This case, he began, is not only about a vehicle being towed. It is about the abuse of power, racial targeting, and the failure to follow policy. Belling swallowed hard. The courtroom screens turned on, showing the video from that day. The same video millions had already seen online. The chief's SUV parked in a restricted lot for law enforcement. Belling walking toward it with a mean smirk on his face. His voice mocking. His tone disrespectful. The argument. The insults. The moment he realized Marcus was the chief, and still continued the towing just to show dominance. People in the courtroom shook their heads. The judge paused the video and sighed. "Officer Belling," he said, Explain why you acted in this manner. Belling's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client believed the vehicle was illegally parked. The judge cut him off. There were two signs, both clear, both marked for law enforcement only. That excuse does not hold. The lawyer tried again. He did not recognize Chief Reed at first. That is not the issue, the judge said firmly. Everyone watched as Belling stood up. He had no choice but to speak. I made a mistake, he said quietly. I got frustrated. I felt like he was challenging me. Challenging you? The judge repeated. He simply asked why his lawful vehicle was being towed. That is not a challenge. That is a question. Belling looked down. The chief finally spoke. He stood slowly and faced the judge. I did not want this to destroy Officer Belling's life, Marcus said. But what he did was not a small mistake. He did not just tow my SUV. He tried to tow my dignity. He tried to make me feel small because of who I am and because of the color of my skin. And that cannot be ignored. The whole room stayed silent. Marcus continued. I have spent 26 years in law enforcement. I have seen good officers and bad officers. Officer Belling is not evil, but he is dangerous because he refuses to see his own bias. If someone like him can target me, a chief with full authority, then imagine what he is doing to people with no power. Some people nodded. Some wiped tears. Even Belling looked shaken. The judge leaned forward. Chief Reed, what outcome do you believe is fair? I want justice, Marcus said, not revenge. The judge took notes. Then he asked Belling one last question. If you could go back to that day, what would you do differently? Belling hesitated. His lips shook. I would listen. I would control my anger. I would not treat him like that. For the record, the judge said, why did you treat him like that? The courtroom froze. Everyone waited. Belling's voice broke. Because I thought he was just another black man trying to act important. The words echoed through the room like a punch. No metaphors were needed. The truth was already heavy. The judge closed his eyes for a moment. Then he spoke. That statement, he said, is the core of this entire case. He turned to the lawyers. I am ready to deliver my decision. Everyone leaned in. Cameras clicked nonstop. Officer Belling, the judge began, your actions were abusive, unprofessional, and racially motivated. You ignored policy. You ignored clear signage. You disrespected a superior officer. And you escalated a situation where no danger existed. The judge looked at Marcus. Chief Reed, you showed restraint, discipline, and maturity even when you were publicly humiliated. Then the judge delivered the judgment. Officer Belling is hereby fired from the police department effective immediately. Gasps filled the room. The judge wasn't done. Additionally, due to damages caused by the wrongful towing, public embarrassment, emotional distress, and legal fees, Officer Belling is ordered to pay Chief Reed a total of $1.2 million. Belling's jaw dropped. His lawyer grabbed his head with both hands. People whispered loudly. Reporters nearly ran out to break the news. But the judge continued. This ruling should remind every officer that a badge is not a toy. It carries responsibility. And when used to harm or degrade others, the consequences will reflect the damage done. Then he struck the gavel. Case closed. Officer Belling collapsed into his seat. His career was gone. His reputation destroyed. His finances ruined. It was a fall no one saw coming, not even himself. The man who once acted untouchable now had nothing left. Chief Reed walked toward him, not to gloat, but to offer his hand. Belling looked confused. Marcus said quietly, "This is not the end of your life. Use it to become better." Then he walked away with dignity, leaving Belling to think about everything he had done. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Marcus. Microphones pushed toward him. Lights flashed everywhere. Chief Reed, how do you feel about the $1.2 million judgment? One reporter asked. Marcus answered with calm strength. Money is not the real victory. Accountability is. Another reporter shouted, Do you forgive him? Marcus nodded. I do. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. Actions matter. People clapped. Some cried. Some held signs supporting him. His family hugged him tightly. His officers stood around him with respect. As he looked at the crowd, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt since that ugly day. Peace. Not because he won money, but because the truth won. And the truth could help the department change for the better. That night, the city lit up with news alerts and headlines. Everywhere, people talked about the case. Some were shocked. Some were angry. Some were relieved. But one thing was clear. When a racist cop tried to show power by towing the police chief's SUV, he thought he was teaching someone a lesson. Instead, he ended up learning the biggest lesson of his life.